Coming up next, it's a lot of us. Coming up next, it's the Pro Wrestling Report PrimeTime. David, what are these shenanigans that you are employing here tonight?
There we are. There it is again.
The Pro Wrestling Report PrimeTime. We're live Monday, April 15, 2020. We're back in the same place, and I hate it because I really don't like him. We have so much to talk about. WWE, much like us tonight, return to live television, but should they be, and how the hell are they deemed an essential service? We're going to talk about that along with tonight's hot news and so much more. We are joined around the United States by our associates, our biggest associate panel ever tonight. They are ready. You are ready. We are ready. This is the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time for Monday. April 15, 2020. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
We don't have it open this week. I just wanted to see what. There's nothing to roll. We're not rolling it. You have this animal looking at me.
It's Alf. He's helping out.
Alien life form?
Well, look at the times we're
Gordon
living in.
Shumway himself is on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime, live on Fight, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, all over the world. Gordon Shumway?
Yeah, of course.
Where's the cat?
Well, he was hungry.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We are live on Fight TV. It is Monday, April 15th. WWE Raw is in just under 1 hour's time, and we are here with you live, and we have so much to talk about. It has been a wild weekend in the world of professional wrestling.
It's all taken care of now.
What is all taken care of, David?
Everything that kabuki nonsense earlier on.
I am Damian Nelson. He is David Octavius, the Tiberius, the alleged backyard, one-time, straight-edge, knockout, hardcore Hall of Famer hero. And let's do this thing.
Yeah, we got a hell of a crew tonight.
We got a hell of a crew tonight, but we've also got a lot of people commenting on socials, on Facebook. We've got Caleb Sanit, Raymond Big Ray Hernandez, Bill D. Streeter, and on YouTube, we've got the Enlightened Kennedy, Daniel B., Charles Stevens III, and thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be sharing your comments live here on this broadcast as we prepare you for tonight's WWE Raw. But we are not alone, as you said, David. We have our associates with us, and joining us tonight, the all-star cast, starting with the one who's not a star, the man they call Meathead. Welcome. Welcome to Primetime. I just, I wanted that different perspective so that you could see me seeing you.
Well, at least I know what day of the week it is, as the boys have been trying to tell you.
Hey
now.
And Andrew Baydala from up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. How the heck are you tonight?
I'm very good. The snow can go away anytime now. I'm ready for some spring weather.
You look a little tired tonight. You got the little facial hair going on. You got your little mousse in your hair, your narrow ass. I can't be that way.
This is what happens. Yeah, this is what happens when you're stuck at home, working from home with 3 screaming kids all day. But I love them. I love my wife, but it's a lot.
It's called Children's NyQuil. It works like a charm.
Jason Solomon from Brooklyn, New York. Jason, how are you here on a Monday?
I'm good. Now, my question to you is, do you consider me a star? I mean, I know what you said about Meathead, but what about me?
Jason, you and I go back further than Andrew and I go back, and not quite as far as Meathead and I go back, but, I mean, clearly you're a star.
Clearly.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. I do have a question, though. Tell me about this children's book over your right shoulder.
Oh, well, yeah. So that children's book is a book that my mother actually worked on a number of years ago, and I was able to get it published last year. So I have them all over the apartment, strategically placed, multiple copies. I can send you one if you want, but it's about a horse named Hardy, not to be confused with Jeff Hardy.
Awesome, fantastic. That's tremendous. And is that a Cloverfield poster over your left shoulder?
It is one of my favorite films. Yes, I was hoping you would notice.
Dude, that movie makes me literally nauseous.
Yes.
I can't watch it.
You got to give it a second chance. Give it.
Were you in it?
Take a Dramamine. You'll be all right.
Didn't work. Jason, thank you for joining us on the Silent Monster Sounds Off podcast. And Josh Chernoff is with us as well from Philadelphia, PA, at So Says Chernoff and the So Says Chernoff show on Fight TV. But also, you've got a huge podcast that drops every week as well.
Yes, it's great to be here. I've got Mind of the Meanie, at Mind of the Meanie, with the blue meanie, the blue guy. Very happy to be a part of that. New episode just dropped today. Can't say the name of the episode on this program. What?
Was it hot? Where did you drop it?
I dropped it right over where I dropped it wherever some of my good friend the Blue Meanie told me to. It's where I dropped my names. See what I did?
All right, well, thank you, Josh. There are the associates, ladies and gentlemen, and we are running off and running. What are you doing?
You know what? Somebody gimmicked up the gimmick again. How does this
Somebody
happen?
gimmicked up the
Well,
gimmick
you know, it's
again.
not- I would never do it. I don't do anything around here.
Hey, Dave, this is called payback, Dave. This is called payback.
Jeez. Like, I'm
Yeah,
thinking-
you messed with Friday's show. You took us off
Friday?
the air 17 minutes into our show, on Wednesday rather,
Well,
last
it was
Wednesday.
a train wreck of a show to begin with.
Yeah, because you were driving the train. I was in the caboose.
All I know is when I came back on for that 20 seconds, ratings through the roof for 20 seconds.
It's funny how you were the only one who was able to get back on. Coincidence? I think not.
Well,
That's valid.
so I missed Chernoff's entire thing. I'm like, I don't know where to find any of your
He's
stuff.
got a podcast
fine.
with the Blue Meanie.
It's like-
He's got
I thought it was like he was doing like the whole what is that, closed captioning gimmick, but I didn't see anything.
Well, guys, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's get right down to it. And our big story, our top story tonight, is the big reveal, I guess, that WWE is returning to live broadcasting from the Performance Center in Orlando for their Monday Night Raw, Wednesday night NXT, and Friday night SmackDown broadcasts. Now, this is big news because, as you know, the state of Florida is under a stay-at-home order, and only essential businesses are allowed to operate. Well, WWE, via the governor of the state, via the city of Orlando, has been deemed an essential business. In fact, their talents have reportedly been given forms that show that they are essential members of the media.
So they have papers?
Papers that show they're essential members of the media.
So
Yeah,
we
much
should-
like you and I have.
Well, but I haven't got mine yet.
I
I mean, if they're essential, we have to be
Could
essential.
you actually run to the store for me?
I'm not going to run. I'll get
Could you get in your
something.
vehicle, drive to the store? We did pick up some it's Dramamine stuff. About.
Sure, you need that now.
Yeah, I'm going to watch Cloverfield after the show.
Oh.
Well, WWE deemed an essential service. That is as important as them returning to live programming, as they also revealed over the weekend that one of their talents, not a wrestler, had indeed sustained and acquired the COVID-19 virus and has successfully since recovered from it. Now, it's interesting. They told us that they had a talent, or an on-air talent rather, who had it and has recovered from it, and told us at that point, which I think actually was smartest to do. But they're running a big risk by running these shows, but there are several reasons why they may be running these
Well,
shows,
there's a-
David Hero. And before we get into the specific reasons, first, see, I have to manage you. First, let's talk about your initial thought of the fact that we're now going to start getting live programming again from WWE after a taped WrestleMania.
I'm kind of torn on the whole thing because I understand why they have to do it for the dollars and cents. It makes them lots of dollars, so they have to do it. That's the sense.
If it don't make dollars, it
But,
don't make sense.
It's just, and I understand everything is getting a little more comfortable. You know, apparently, you know, the numbers are way down and everything's balanced out, or we've missed peaks or whatever.
Careful what you say. You might be accused of
No, because
being a certain news organization.
Well, because I'm not. We're talking pro wrestling. I'm not talking about COVID-19 or anything else, but
Might get retweeted.
it's just very. It's still dangerous, in my opinion, because when you go out there and you say one of your employees had it, well, now the armor's been pierced. So if something else happens, they can say, well, there's been a history. They've already had one of their employees. that have had it.
Amazon, Smithfield, UPS, FedEx, McDonald's, all of them have had people in their businesses
Exactly,
who've had
but
it.
here's the thing. It's not like they all took measures and scaled back and taped and had 8 people in a building at one time. Now they're going live, and so much more can happen on live. I mean, am I happy that they're having content? Absolutely. Do I think that they need to at this time? I don't think so. I think they could have. I think they would have been fine, but at the end of the day, it comes down to contracts, and that's why they're showing up in the PC this week.
And there are a lot of reports out there showing what is probably a logical assumption to make, that they do have, obviously, contractual obligations to the USA Network, to Fox Sports, to international networks as well. And perhaps the wording of some of those deals may pose a situation where WWE could be held in a, not breach necessarily, but if these deals are redone, you look at Fox, for instance, $1 billion over 5 years, I believe was the initial deal. If they have a way out, maybe they're going to take it, that being Fox, because the NFL, whatever other networks or sports broadcasts they have right now, all of that is up in the air. So they've potentially going to look at redoing deals, and WWE could be one of those expensive deals that they're redoing. Or conversely, the fact that they are still presenting live programming may make them much more attractive to some of these networks, specifically USA and Fox as well. A lot to unwrap here, including the fact that the XFL was dissolved over this past weekend. Surprise there, no more XFL, second time it fails. And the reveal that WWE did indeed on paper own a big piece of XFL via some stock that they had used to purchase the company. So much to look at, so much to unwrap. Thank God we've got 4 of the smartest guys in professional wrestling here to talk with us about it. I want to go around the horn and find out your thoughts on everything that we just talked about there, your perspective. What is the ramifications? What are the ramifications? What happens? What is the opportunity, and what are the challenges with WWE now going live again with their weekly programming? We'll start with you, Josh Chernoff.
Well, first of all, I think it's short-sighted. I've said this in the past. I think, and now, like as you said, that there's a pierce in the armor. What I just don't understand why they would do this. There's such an enormous risk at hand, and I'm not even just talking about risk to people's health, but the risk to their business if people get sick. So I don't understand why they're doing this. Also, as far as the contracts go, I don't know the validity to that. But let's say that that's true. Let's say they have to have, I think it was like 49 weeks of live programming. So does it specifically say live in-ring action, or is it just live programming? Is it just new programming? Because why can't they be you saw like Saturday Night Live. I mean, that wasn't exactly live, but look, we're doing this live right now. We're in 5 different locations. Why can't they be doing pieces on their talent? Having deep dive interviews for an hour per talent per show. Like there are things that they could be doing that's showing up. Obviously, they've been getting away with showing old matches for chunks of the time. So because they, unless that was their couple of weeks, and now time's up on that. But I just think that it's short-sighted in the long run. I don't really see it as an opportunity. It's great to still have something on television, as other shows have had to cut their season short or have, gone on hiatus until, who knows when. I get that, but this is a company that has so much content on their network. They have so much that they can do. To put people at risk just makes absolutely no sense to me.
All right. Jason Solomon, how do you see this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Josh said. I think it's very short-sighted, and it's more risk than they really need to be taking on. I mean, I was watching an interview that Kofi Kingston was giving with a Muscle and Fitness YouTube channel. It just came up in my feed on Thursday. So it must have been recorded a couple of days ago. One of the hosts asked him and said, "Oh, apparently you guys are going to be going live every week, and you're going to be traveling. How does your family feel about that?" And it looked like it caught Kofi off guard. And Kofi was saying, "Well, I don't think that's the case. My guess is we're going to tape, a bunch of shows in advance because that's what makes more sense." So hopefully he's gotten the memo by now. I think it's a risk because, look, if something happens, we already saw one example of it. It's not a stretch to think that at some point one of the roster talents, hopefully not, but somebody's going to get sick. And if that happens and you don't have 3, 4, 5 weeks worth of television already in the can, they're going to be in a worse situation. AEW, you could say the same thing about AEW, but AEW just got done taping weeks worth of television. So, they're at least a little more protected if something were to happen. So I think it's very short-sighted. The contract issue, I can understand that if that is true. And again, I don't know what's fact and fiction there. But if you notice, FS1 has been showing, it's becoming almost a second WWE network of late. They've been showing a lot of content.
Yep.
A lot of WWE 24 specials and documentaries and stuff. They're proving their value to Fox, I think, through all of this other programming that's airing on these other Fox properties. So this notion that, well, if they don't go live every week, Fox is going to renege on the deal or anything like that, I don't know that I buy into that. I think they're proving their worth in other ways. And look, if you're a talent, what must you be thinking at this point? You're going to have to travel back and forth. You know, we heard about Daniel Bryan having to go into self-quarantine after WrestleMania so he wouldn't get his wife sick.
Yeah.
Up in a hotel for 2 weeks. If these guys are flying back and forth every week, you know, unless they come up with some kind of rotating schedule for talent, what are they going to do? I mean, are they going to fly home, go into quarantine, and go right back to Orlando and never see their families? It's unnecessary. It's ridiculous that they consider themselves essential. Don't even get me started on that. But I just think it's too much risk. It's not worth it. And I worry that something bad is going to end up happening.
And you know that's a risk they run, and you're very right. And it's the relationships. I mean, let's not forget, you mentioned AEW. AEW was essentially kicked out of Jacksonville and had to find a new place to do their shows. Now WWE, you know, because, I mean, it's obvious who they know, right?
Who do they know?
Well, Linda McMahon is former Small Business Administration Secretary.
The Hall of Famer they have.
Current president, who's a WWE Hall of Famer, appeared on WWE programming for several years. Clearly that. And there was a video posted online today of the, I think the councilman or the city, whatever, in Orlando or in Florida, announcing why WWE would be deemed essential. It's a stretch, folks. It's a stretch for a lot of these businesses that have been deemed essential so far, but this one really goes a long way. If they didn't know who they knew, they wouldn't be doing these shows. And again, AEW, for what we know, was essentially kicked out, nearly shut down by Jacksonville last week, and now in the same state. WWE gets a free pass. Andrew, what do you say about this story?
I don't think AEW was shut down in Jacksonville. I think they were almost shut down in a different state. I know they were shut down with their Jacksonville tapings a couple weeks ago, but yes, last week's or 2 weeks ago's show was in, I don't know the exact location, but I know it wasn't Florida. I do believe that the WWE has contractual obligations. I won't, again, like everyone said, I'm not going to speak on the validity of those or what's the devil in the details, but I will tell you that Fox and USA paid for a product, and you never know how they can change their contract because realistically they're not getting the same type of product that they paid for. They have been recently, but if things are going to change where they're going to tape or they're going to air old Royal Rumbles or old WrestleManias, realistically, what type of ratings is that going to draw? So while I do agree that maybe WWE being an essential business is a stretch, and I feel for all of the families and the talents involved, I do believe this is a case of this is what you signed up for when you became a professional wrestler. This is Vince McMahon's show. This is Vince McMahon's world. And it's essentially the same guy who ran a show live on Christmas and Christmas Eve. So this shouldn't surprise anybody. Sorry.
No, wait, what is the Christmas Eve comparison? For some people, those aren't holidays.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, people want to be with their families and all this other stuff, and I totally understand that. I get where every professional wrestler, man, woman, and child is coming from when this whole situation has erupted. And for me, do I deem WWE essential? No, but TV contracts and maybe their partners do. So we have to just take a back seat and enjoy the entertainment that they're providing and support them as best we possibly can. Because this is a situation where they're the only thing out there besides AEW, and WWE is the only live entity out there. So let's just take a back seat and breathe, my opinion.
So you didn't watch the new episode of The Tiger King yesterday?
I did not. I didn't even know they dropped a new one. Where is it?
It's on Netflix. Where they all are.
Tonight is the Fox special from TMZ, but
what about OWE on Fight TV?
You know what the problem is? Is Monday night you got Raw, Wednesday is NXT, followed by 205 Live, and then on Friday is SmackDown. That's a lot of different crews coming and going, a lot of different talents coming and going. I'm sure they will have certain protocols into place, but when you're looking at possibly 8 to 9 hours of programming, and then you add another 4 to 5 hours a day, of production, way too many variables, way too many X factors. There's no difference if they would have taped it, because unless you know, you don't know. AEW has done a great job doing all their stuff. I believe they're up in Georgia is where they did all their latest content. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's live or taped, because nothing so far has truly been leaking out of these tapings for people to know what's going on.
That's a great point. WrestleMania spoilers went nowhere. We haven't heard anything about what's happened on these tapings. What is the reason for going live? One of you made the key point earlier, may have been you, Josh, that the more they have in the can, the better protected. I think it was you, Dave. The more they have in the can, the better protected they are. Because what if somebody does get sick and then can't show up and can't complete or continue a storyline?
But I think that's why the contract is the devil in the details. I think there's something in there that either Vince McMahon, Fox, or the USA Network, NBC Universal is telling them we need you to be live because he doesn't want to be in breach. That's a guess. It's not fact. That's my guess.
Well, what's been reported out there? Go ahead, Josh.
Oh no, I was just saying my only issue with this is like we've been seeing what ended up being a 5-person match at WrestleMania because Dana Brooke wasn't there. But we've been seeing all of these. There's constantly tag matches and like it seems like 6-man tags, whether it's AEW, WWE, whatever. You know, they can take all the precautions they want, but you're talking about a virus where you can go 14 days while you are incredibly contagious with no sign of it whatsoever. So you have that one person come in, gets a kick to the stomach, exhales onto the next person, exhales onto the turnbuckle pad. You have at the end of it, like I know like that's a lot of, you know, I'm building it up a lot of hyperbole and all, but realistically that is something that can happen. And now you've got all these people in the ring. So even if they're wiping everything down in between matches, they now have an opportunity to, between that, going outside the ring with the camera people, the announcers. I mean, you've got groups of people.
If the reports are true, though, they're taking temperatures every day. If the reports are true.
Let me ask you this: all of that.
What does that matter?
Look, we none of us are experts. We're no doctor. What's the guy's name that's getting fired?
Speak for yourself.
Look, none of us are experts on COVID-19. But I can say this: I was in China when it started. I was in South Korea when it was bad there. Jason, you're in New York, which is obviously the hardest hit area of the United States. There's a lot we don't know about this whole thing, so we shouldn't speculate on how it can, how it can't transmit, and who may be at risk and who isn't at risk. But there are a lot of people scared of this thing right now. A lot of people in WWE are scared of this thing right now. And a lot of the talents are being forced, let me rephrase that, are being asked to perform in a situation that they may deem unsafe for their own reasons. And it seems as if they say that, if they speak up, they are given the opportunity to not participate, i.e. Roman Reigns. Meathead.
Damian, that's exactly where I was going to lean to. This is the wrestling business. And if you speak up, again, you know, there's higher talents that get to speak up. There's the lower to mid talents that are afraid to speak up in anything. Roman Reigns being one of them. There is a chance that you're being leaned on to do things that maybe you're not comfortable with if you want your spot in the business or if you want your spot on the show. And I'm glad you led into that because that's all I've been thinking about. Because if WWE is essential, the massage parlor down the street should be essential as well. Because this is something that, I mean, if we need a release to watch wrestling, we need a.
You must need some other kind of release, I guess, too. Massage parlor, you lucky pal.
I tell you what, Dave's got a lot more 20s in his pocket since this whole thing has started. So and it hasn't rained once. But so, you know, there's different ways to look at this. You got the talent perspective, you got the business perspective. What the reports are that are out there is that there are a certain number of tape shows that WWE can do for their Fox contract specifically. We haven't seen the contracts. We don't know if that's true or not. But we do know that the entire media landscape has changed. We do know that the delivery of content has changed from the content producer to the networks broadcasting them. What we don't know are the details, but it is valid that WWE has continued to deliver content. And what is also a factor in all of this is the fact that the XFL folded this weekend. We talked a couple of weeks ago about Vince McMahon and WWE becoming more cash ready and cashing in some stocks, taking some deferments on the tax implications of that, making sure they had more money. Look, Dave and I will talk about this much more on Wednesday's live edition of Reaction, but they took a huge hit with WrestleMania. They took a huge hit with the XFL. And now to find out WWE had a 24% stake in the company, there could be some larger problems here that we're not considering that might make them a bit more desperate to try to meet whatever the requirements are of their existing contracts, because it does expand beyond our shores. They have a lot of international programming that they need to deliver as well.
But you know what, Damian? I have a hard time believing that there isn't a pandemic addendum to any contract that's being signed.
Like our contract with the venue in Tampa for shenanigans?
Yeah,
Well,
they
but
didn't give us our money back.
Well, but they will. They're going to have to.
But to Damian's point, Dave, what how many more walls are going to fall down before the WWE just throws their hands up? I don't think they want to rock the boat anymore. The XFL, WrestleMania, they don't want the opportunity for anything else to come crashing down on them. They're trying to take all the necessary precautions.
Yeah, especially because history has proven that when it comes crashing down, it also hurts inside.
Yeah, that's right. I was actually going to say the same thing. We were thinking along the same wavelength, but I'll throw one more thing in there too. We don't know the status of their Saudi Arabia deal. We know they really lean very heavily, I think, on their TV money and also that Saudi deal. Now, if they're not able to go back there and run another show later this year, which I would think is up in the air at this point, are they in jeopardy of losing out on that money as well? To me, that's the problem when you sort of put your eggs in those one or two baskets. Yep. It can all fall apart. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're worried about that as well.
And it may be falling apart right before our very eyes right now. Look, this could be a situation where a lot of companies in the U.S. have become insolvent. What that means is they won't be able to pay their bills by a certain time. The U.S. Postal Service has a lot to worry about, but a lot of other companies don't have a lot to worry about. And while we don't know that WWE or any other media company got any federal assistance, we do know that a lot of companies are in a very bad spot, and they're week to week at best in a lot of cases.
There's no way any business could have prepared or planned for this.
Yeah.
No one expects to be out of business for 3 or 4 months.
Nope.
Because of this.
Well, I want to get your thoughts real quick, gentlemen, on the XFL factor. As I said, Dave and I will go into it deeply on Wednesday's episode of Reaction. But real quick, your thoughts. The XFL disbanded, filed for bankruptcy today, and now they may be trying to sell the assets. WWE has its very own WCW meathead.
Oh, see, now that felt like a shot. Here's the thing, XFL, I actually enjoyed it. We had a group of guys. We all had our own team. XFL could have survived. It's just really poor luck. I don't think it was a business issue. I don't think it was a, performance or ratings issue. It's just this situation that popped up. They can't survive on their own. I'd like to see, once we kind of normalize again, I'd like to see it come back for a third time. I think this is a profitable thing. Now,
misery loves company.
The good thing they had with the XFL this time was they had contingencies where the players were allowed to sign with NFL teams afterwards. They had not the blessing, but they had a better handshake deal with the NFL and the networks this time, where it wasn't, I'm Vince McMahon and I'm running football. This time it was a little bit better.
They allowed handshakes in the XFL.
Andrew, XFL, no more.
Yeah, it's totally unfortunate for all those who lost their jobs. I do believe that this was probably, you can't get a TV deal in the next 2 to 3 years if you don't have any product on TV. So I think the XFL was pretty, it was doomed after we had this whole pandemic, and without them running television nationally, I don't see how it would have survived without Vince McMahon bleeding any more money.
Jason, what do you say about the XFL? Will you miss it?
No, I personally, I won't miss it. But I mean, I will say that I thought they were doing all the things right this time, as opposed to the first time they ran. So I feel bad, because it seemed like they had their whole operation. It was more of a well-oiled machine this time. And people seem to be pretty pleased with how it was running. I would disagree with Meathead on the point about ratings, though, when we talk about the ratings. And I think a lot of people probably expected out of the gate, started out really well, and I think their ratings dropped by 40 or 50%. So I think over time that could have potentially become an issue. But what really I think did them in is the fact that this was their first season. Now, if they were more established and they had been around 3-4 years, perhaps they would have been able to weather the storm like some of these other sports leagues. But it's not generating the kind of money that the NFL or the NBA is. So it's just bad timing more than anything else.
Josh Chernoff, your thought?
I pretty much agree with everybody. I just think it's bad timing. I think that it had potential. Who can say? I mean, they weren't that far into their season, really. So who can say what the rest of the season was going to do? If the quality of the games would have caught on, word of mouth would have built, and you would have gotten that interest from more football fans, more NFL fans. By the end of the season, we could have been looking at this saying, wow, what a huge success. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And now filing for bankruptcy, obviously you file for bankruptcy for a specific reason. But hopefully, to me, the biggest thing coming out of this is the WWE stockholders turn around going, wait a minute, we were told we'd have nothing to do with this, and now this is actually affecting us. So that's what I think is the biggest thing, and then that trickles all the way down to the WWE and also the mindset. Vince McMahon took a loss. He doesn't like to take a loss. So is that going to motivate him to focus back in the WWE, or is that going to have his head spinning and Lord help us on what we're about to see in the WWE?
Well, the difference, though, Josh, is yes, McMahon took a loss, but this was a run-in. This was not expected.
That's true.
No one could have planned for it. So it's. I don't think it's a failure. I don't think, as was pointed out, that the league itself had the perils that the original version did. And as to the point of the ratings talk, I remember that first version in 01, 10 million people or whatever got a 10.3 rating, and then it plummeted and tanked the next week, if not the next night. They had a more gradual decline this time, which was more in line with expectations. So it seemed like it had the possibility to continue to grow. But I do understand, Andrew and Meathead, that come tomorrow morning, you guys have a brand new forum by which you're going to talk more about the XFL and Ronda Rousey's comments from this weekend on the brand new daily show called PWR Today.
Yeah, you could join us every morning, and we will discuss Ronda Rousey. We're going to discuss exactly
Every
what
day?
she said. I believe it's every day, right?
Well, I
Ronda
hope you
Rousey?
guys talk about
Ronda Rousey every
Rousey.
single
You might
day.
have to pay her.
We're going to talk about Ronda. That's going to be our first topic, and her comments towards the WWE universe or the wrestling universe, whether or not it's a work or if it's real life. We're going to talk about the XFL and the financial implications it has on the WWE, and maybe we'll throw some WCW references in there for Meathead.
There you go. It'll keep me going. And, unlike Tracy Morgan on the Today Show, I will not talk about what I've been doing during this pandemic.
Yeah,
Wait,
me either.
Tracy Morgan's on the Today Show?
Tracy Morgan did an interview on the Today Show, and he
but
said
he's
what he's
not
been
on
doing
the
with his
show.
life.
He's on The View.
That's
I was not saying Whoopi and Tracy Morgan are the same person.
That's PWR Today, folks. A brand new daily podcast broadcasting Monday through Fridays from the Pro Wrestling Report. It's your digestible news of the day from wrestling. Start your day.
It's like having your Wheaties in the morning.
It is like having your
Yes.
Wheaties in the morning. In fact, you can listen to it while you're having your Wheaties in the morning. 20 minutes or less, we guarantee you, folks. Get a digestible bit of news, how to start your day in professional wrestling from the Pro Wrestling Report. It will also be simulcast on YouTube and Facebook. That's PWR Today. You can follow us on Twitter at PWR360 right now to get the link. We did an episode today, David, here,
We
our
did.
inaugural episode
We
of
did.
PWR
It
Today.
was 13 and 3/4 minutes long.
I'm understanding why I'm not on there.
You're too busy. You already have a podcast. See,
I was going to say too long-winded, but
The long-winded is kind of where
Well,
say-
that also, first of all, yeah. We only got 20 minutes.
yeah, Mind of the Meanie, I think, was 2 hours and like 20 minutes this week.
Yeah.
So
And that was just a monologue.
yeah, it was just the intro. Yeah.
You know, there's a place for the mind of the meanies. There's a place for the Salamonster Sounds Off. All of us can exist together with this little digestible bit of news to take with you on your morning commute once we start those again on PWR Today. But let's go one last time around on this WWE returning to live programming thing. Tonight is Monday Night Raw, live in just under 30 minutes on the USA Network. We know that Drew McIntyre and Becky Lynch are going to be appearing live. I'm not sure we know much else, but what do they need to show us to justify being deemed essential and having to go live each and every night for their programming when it happens? What do we need to see tonight to make it justified, I guess you could say? We'll start with you, Joshua.
I don't really know that they can show us anything that's going to justify them going live. Because think about it, what is there? Somebody getting injured, nothing that's going to go as planned needs to be live. There's no one in there to leak anything out, like we talked about earlier. So I don't think there's going to be any justification. The best thing they can do to take people's minds off of that, continue to put on an entertaining show or begin to put on an entertaining show. That's really, honestly, in my opinion, all that they can do, because they're not, in my opinion, essential. It's great that we have this to watch, but man, some of those if you have I know there's a different brand, but a Bailey and Sasha promo Man, we talked about me being long-winded. At least I happen to think that I'm somewhat entertaining when I'm
Yeah,
speaking.
but they look
So,
way better in tights than you. That's the difference.
hey, wait until next Monday and we'll judge that.
Ties and a tight. Interesting.
That's
Thank
it.
you, Joshua, for that. Jason, what do they need to do and show us tonight, starting on Raw, to justify that they need to be live every week?
There's nothing they could do to justify it unless they actually put on the screen a copy of the Fox contract for us to read through. There's no reason for them to be live. But let's not forget, the statement they gave to ESPN the other day, and I believe this is what Vince McMahon honestly believes. He said WWE is part of the fabric. It's woven into the fabric of America. So that's kind of how they view themselves. I think other people would disagree. There is no reason for it to be live. If they wanted to take advantage of the fact that the show is live, the only thing I think they could do is something where they incorporate interactive elements of some kind into the show. They used to have those Cyber Sunday shows and things of that nature where fans can vote on matches they wanted to see in real time. Otherwise, there's no point whatsoever in them being live. The only thing I know is I guess they're having Money in the Bank qualifying matches for all of the women tonight. I did see that from the preview. I don't know what all the matches are. I like the fact that if they're moving ahead with Money in the Bank, and part of me wishes they would kind of delay that pay-per-view, maybe replace it with something else, because I just the idea of doing the Money in the Bank without an audience, to me, it just doesn't feel right. But if they're going to do it, I at least like the fact they're doing qualifying matches, so people have to earn their way in, and it's an easy way to kill some TV time on both shows over the next few weeks.
Andrew, what do you say? How did they justify it?
I'm getting the vibe here that nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but majority of this panel doesn't like the fact that WWE is live and giving you guys entertainment. And I just don't understand it. Just don't show me replays of WrestleMania. Don't show me a Royal Rumble for 2 hours. Give me live action. Give me new feuds, new matches, and I'm good to go. And I thank them for everything they've been doing.
The only issue that I have, speaking for myself, with them being live is the risk that it's putting their talent at. Like that's it. I don't have any heat with them for the fact that they're producing live content. It's the fact that they're risking the health of their talent and their crew by doing it. That is my only issue.
Yeah, I mean the question that Damian posed was, what can they do tonight to justify them being essential? The answer is nothing. There's nothing they can do to justify them being essential. If they want to go live, they can go live. We'll be watching the show as we normally would, and we'll either like it or we won't. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of what can they do to sort of justify the fact that we have to be live, the answer is nothing. I think we've established that from a fan perspective, it doesn't matter whether they're live or if they tape, for the next 5 weeks. It happens to be live. Hopefully they put on a show, because it's not easy when you have no audience. You have 3 hours to fill. I think that's why we've seen Royal Rumble matches and old WrestleMania matches. I'm curious if they continue that pattern tonight.
And final thoughts, Meathead.
There's no, again, agree with everyone else. There's no reason to be essential. However, there's also no reason to not maybe throw in one live a night. If they're going to show up at the building on Mondays, tape one match. Or, tape all but one match, make one thing live. At least that way you kind of meet the commitments on both ends. We got these matches in the can. Oh, yeah, here comes Brock to come out and, do this, or Drew McIntyre to come out and do that. They don't need to be live. Honestly, there's no reason that they can't have the talent sitting at a hotel, kind of bust them in and out, like I had said with WrestleMania, and just, kind of protect everybody. While we joke about the situation, COVID, what have you, it's serious in the same way. We may be okay. They may be okay, but why would you take a chance?
Well, the chance that is being taken is seemingly being taken voluntarily. Now, you can argue whether you get punished if you choose not to be part of that voluntarily, but I don't think all the blame goes to WWE here. The talents are agreeing to appear. The people are agreeing to come and work. They're taking that risk. And it is true, Andrew. We are thankful that we're getting the live programming. But the really valid question is how did WWE finagle this, that they were deemed essential?
It's not even the fact that they're being deemed essential. The fact is that Vince McMahon and company can say they were the last company standing. That they were the ones that withstood everything. They outlasted the NCAA.
And I bought my competition.
They beat the NBA. They outlasted Major League Baseball. They outlasted the NBA. They outlasted the NHL.
And they want that.
But
And of
that's
course,
that's
because
like
for
being
them,
like.
that's
So what are your
But
thoughts?
that's like being like the guy, like the building's on fire and hey, everybody left, but I was the last one. I
Titanic.
just sat there and waited.
Yeah, but what about UFC? UFC was all set to go until the California governor
Disney
called.
shut them down.
Well, I'm saying the
Yeah.
California governor had the head of Disney call.
But to be fair, do you think Disney wants anybody on Epstein's island?
Wait, it wasn't his island, was it?
Of course it
No,
was.
please.
He
was
was gonna
it,
buy
was it really his
Epstein's
island?
island.
No.
Why would you do that?
What?
People are thinking you tell the truth sometimes. You're going to sit here and talk about UFC was going to go to some sex trafficking
When
island?
a billionaire buys an island, what usually happens?
Mark,
But you know what is essential? Hold on. What is essential is promo code PWR360. Head over to collarandelbowbrand.com. Save some money, get some cool shirts, get the swag, get the shorts, and use that essential promo code PWR360. How about that, huh?
How about
That we can all agree on.
Exactly.
no, not even I can. Look, folks, we talked about a new podcast coming to you just a little while ago from the Pro Wrestling Report. Well, our programming schedule has changed as well, and we are pleased to share with you right now what we will be going forward. Now, we had told you leading up to WrestleMania, we went as high as 5 days a week. Now we are getting back to normalcy, as the world will soon do as well. And you can join us live each and every Monday night, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, on Fight TV for PrimeTime Live with the tremendous lineup of talents that we have here with us tonight and David Hero. But, yes, that's you. But it's more than that. Primetime Live on Mondays before Raw. On Wednesday nights, it is Reaction Live, where we will be discussing hot topics in the world of professional wrestling and taking your comments and feedback via one social media diva, Linda Kay. And what happened to you?
It was funny. You're hilarious. I'm sorry. And I was thinking of Linda Kay. How can you not smile when you think of Linda Kay?
And then on Fridays, folks, it's the inside story of wrestling. And this Friday, our guest is Armando Estrada, former manager of Umaga, former ECW general manager in WWE. He will be our guest. We're going to talk about some things I didn't even know with him this Friday night. We go live with Armando Estrada, inside story of wrestling. Friday nights at 7 p.m. Wednesday nights, it's Reaction at 7 p.m. And on Mondays, it's the flagship, the mothership. It is PWR Primetime, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in addition to that, every day you can get your fix with PWR Today, available across all podcast channels and available on YouTube and our Facebook channel as well. So there you have it, Dave.
That's a lot of hot news.
No, hot news is next.
Yeah, but that's a lot of additional hot
You
news.
know, hot news, and this one might get me in trouble, so I'm going to bring everybody on screen
Well, then let
here.
Meathead do it.
This one's going to get me in trouble because... How do I go there?
Well, it was an intern. That's how it started.
So, the Revival.
Oh, be careful.
The tag team in WWE, the Revival, was granted their release over the weekend, I believe, if not Friday, whenever it was. And the internet went ablaze because, oh my God, the Revival has finally gotten their release. The Revival, they're so great, they're so tremendous. The Revival, they can go to AEW. The Revival, they can have that match with the Young Bucks. The Revival, wrestling has been saved because WWE released the Revival. Nobody gave a damn about Revival the day before they got released.
Oh, because they weren't on TV. The Revival
No,
is one of the most solid tag teams in wrestling.
They're tremendous. They're fantastic. But why is the internet exploding because they got released?
Because that's what they wanted.
Why?
Because they want them to go to AEW.
And then what?
They want them to work with the Young Bucks. They want them to work with LAX. They want them to work with Pentagon and the other guy that does this.
Ray Phoenix.
Ray Phoenix, exactly. And then that's what they want. And they'll have tremendous matches there. Why do you hate?
I don't hate.
You
I hate
the
the reaction.
Revival.
I hate the fact that nobody cared about them. Nobody talked about them. Not because they weren't on
Hold
TV.
on. To be fair, you were in China for a long time. They've been over for a long time.
Yeah.
The Revival's
They were
a
over
great
in
tag team. They're a
NXT.
tremendous tag team. They're an excellent tag team. Are they the greatest tag team in the world? Is their release going to make revolutionary waves across wrestling?
I mean, that's WWE's fault, not theirs.
I'm not
But
talking
could-
about the release. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just talking about this internet lust. over the
Well,
Revival.
the internet has a tendency to do this with people. You have your internet darlings, but I think that this is something. Let's say they end up going to AEW, and the word on the street becomes, "Wow, the Revival is phenomenal," and they're putting on these classic. I'm sure they'll end up being 8-star matches or whatever. But then you look at it, and that looks great for AEW. It's another thing that looks bad for WWE, where you go, WWE didn't know what to do with them. WWE didn't know how to use them. Once upon a time, WWE was the place where, WCW didn't know how to use somebody. WWE is where you wanted to go to become a star. So I think this could theoretically help at least the narrative for AEW fan, AEW themselves in building additional stars.
Okay.
I think it's WWE's fault. I think WWE didn't do a good job with them towards the end. That's why they're not, everyone's favorite. I think this tag team is fantastic. I think they're going to be a welcomed addition no matter where they go.
My mouth, Andrew? I didn't say anything
I have a question
about the
for all of
Revival.
you guys.
I did not say they were bad. I did not say they were great.
No, you're pulling a Ronda Rousey.
No,
that's what you're doing.
I did not say. I had no problem with them. Their wrestling skills are great. I was excited when they got brought up to Raw or whatever it was. I thought there was potential there. I thought there was greatness there. I'm blaming no one. I'm finding no blame, looking for no blame. I'm just simply saying, is this really as great as everybody thinks it is? Or is it because everybody got what they, quote unquote, wanted?
Does anyone know about, one of them was supposed to, I know got time added to their contract, but the other one's contract was supposed to be up this month or next month.
They granted them their immediate releases, both of them.
Right, but I'm hearing rumor that there's 90-day no compete. And if that's the case, and you have a guy whose contract was about to be up, who theoretically would have been able to go to work, and another guy who a couple, maybe less than 90 days, how does that work? How can you have a guy who's about to leave in 2 weeks, and then now you get rid of him early so that he has a no compete?
We don't know for sure. We don't know what the contract says. As you say, Andrew, there are different reports out there. And as you say, Josh, there are conflicting reports of where each stands with their contract status. Right. Look at Matt Hardy. He immediately went over. We don't know the terms of that deal, if you will. Historically, yes, there is a 90-day no-compete. That depends on who released who, I guess you could say it. And what.
Well, if it's a clean expiration of your contract, you're done.
Yeah.
That's what happened with Matt Hardy.
But keep in mind, remember when it's all different.
Well,
I was going to say.
But to be fair, I don't think WWE is concerned if they go to AEW, considering the state of the game. Because AEW or the Revival, which they can't be called anymore,
they have new names.
They're not going to sell any tickets the first 2 or 3 months.
Right.
Well, and that's my next question. So, barring everything I said, which was my opinion, however, the only person responsible for the things I say on the show would be you, David Hero. But I want to hear your guys' take. What next for the Revival? I hate that it's so obvious, okay? That's the problem I have with it, I think. I hate that it's so obvious that, yes, they're probably going to go to AEW. Yes, they'll do great. Yes, they'll be fun. It'll be fun. But I don't like... It takes some of the intrigue out of it. But what should be next, what will be next, and how should the Revival reappear on the national wrestling scene, Jason Solomon?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, David made a great point. The timing is not ideal because you can't get that big, I guess it wouldn't be too much of a surprise, but you can't get that big surprise appearance and the big reaction. So I think it's going to be a little underwhelming if they just sort of pop up on TV, maybe in some kind of pre-taped promo or segment or something like that. I think a lot of the enthusiasm for them getting their release also is because people were just really happy for them because they know... because they've been, cryptically tweeting and things they've said. Clearly, they've been very unhappy. Supposedly, they got this tremendous, offer to resign. They turned down probably, more money than they've ever been offered in their lives. So they have a passion for what they do. Tag team wrestling apparently is very important to them. AEW happens to have, I think, the strongest tag team division in any promotion in this country right now. So I think it's a good fit. I do think there was a chance if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic and everything was shut down. I would have liked to have seen them make a pit stop in the NWA. I just feel like a team like them, and we've seen people stop over in the NWA on their way elsewhere. I think they would have fit like a glove in that NWA Power Studio. I could have seen them, maybe even get a match with the Rock and Roll Express or something. And I guess NWA is shut down for a few more months, so that likely is not going to happen. But I think a lot of it also is just people are really happy. Now it's the Brody Lee situation. I don't know how the Revival are going to, be 6 months from now, but now's their chance to sink or swim. Brody Lee's getting the chance on Dynamite, and now Dash and Dawson with their new names. I guess Dash Wilder is Cash Wheeler. I love that name. They're going to have their opportunity, sink or swim, and we'll see how they do. But at least we know they'll be happy and they won't be miserable.
And that is very important, Jason. That's a tremendously important point. I guess if they went anywhere else before showing up in AEW, I think that takes a little bit of the obvious nature of it away from me, which is a good thing.
They could show up in New Japan.
They absolutely could, and I think that would be fantastic because I think it'd actually be best because I don't think it's good for AEW to have fans expecting every person who gets their release from WWE to show up on their show the next week. I don't think that's a place they want to be. They're not at battle with Raw or SmackDown. You could argue that they're at battle with NXT. This is a different scenario. This is not the 95, 96, 97, 98 WCW Nitro versus Monday Night Raw war. You don't need to do that stuff. And I think the Matt Hardy debut was great. I think Brody Lee was great. I think the talents that have crossed over are great, but I don't want it to be an automatic that if you leave one company, you're going to the other as soon as you possibly can. Meathead, what do you think?
Yeah, and when was the last time we had that huge surprise run-in or that huge surprise show-up on a show? I mean, they're tweeted a week before or 2 weeks before, social media says we've signed. I mean, you've seen the things with Goldberg. You've seen that we know that they're coming, and all the surprise, the fun element of all that is gone. So, no, I don't like that AEW. Damian, I'm with you on this. I don't like that AEW is the logical next step. I'd like them to maybe disappear for a second. Maybe they could go work New Japan. Go to another territory for a minute. Do what you do. Come on back. I mean, the Edge story that was just on the network had which one was it, Dash or Wilder? That was working with Edge in the ring. It was Wilder. Yep. So I mean, WWE had a chance to use him right there too. Say, hey, here's a guy that helped Edge get back to where he was. Nothing.
Well, in fairness, look who trained The Rock for him to come back.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Remember
if
that?
They go anywhere else before they go to AEW. What if they get hurt in NWA or New Japan?
Well, that's everything. I mean, that's any game.
No one's taking those chances anymore. I mean, from what I heard, the contracts that were offered to them were well into the six figures. Some rumor innuendo was over $500,000 a year. Now, those contracts mean nothing because WWE can release you for any reason they see fit. Okay? But, I mean, there's big money on the table, and the shelf life isn't that long. They got to go and cash in and get that money. As cool as it would be to see them in NWA, cool to see them in New Japan, they got to go and cash those checks.
I mean, look, the last time that really happened, think about when Daniel Bryan was accused of choking Justin Roberts, and he showed up at these random shows, and then boom, he's back on at SummerSlam. That's the last time we've really seen something like that.
Well, again, I want to clarify. I think the Rival's a great tag team. I just hate the obvious nature of this transition, and now the fans expecting that anybody who leaves one company is going to the other, and they're going to set themselves up for disappointment
the fans
when that does not
everything.
happen.
What are you talking about?
I think that could be I think that could just be a lot of fun to have them there. Everybody compares them to the Brainbusters, to Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and I think could be, there's always been that, FTR, what does it stand for? And that all comes originally from Cody Rhodes. What's that?
Oh, it's Forever the Revival.
Wasn't that belt
Sure.
Taz had made?
But you remember what Cody Rhodes had said back in the day. So there's a built-in thing right there where you could have them join up with Tully Blanchard against Cody with Arn Anderson, and there's something that can be there that doesn't have to be this, we left WWE and now we're here. Because that's one thing that I do hate is it worked for like Dean Ambrose becoming John Moxley and breaking out of the prison and all that stuff. But in general, I don't like that Brody Lee, there's been so much like acknowledgement and copying of Vince McMahon and all that. I would love to see the Revival just show up. We don't have to talk about where they were before. They're here now because they're the best tag team in the world or whatever, and just go to work. But
yeah, it's a very good point. I hope they don't beat that into the ground about how they were mismanaged and misused and all that other stuff. Just show up, do your job, and be entertaining, which I think they're going to have the creative freedom to do. And to Damien's point, Jericho, I believe it was Jericho had said on his podcast that if WWE shut down, they're not signing every single one of their talents like WCW would, because some of the guys just don't fit AEW's mold. And I love that, because like Damien said, if it becomes something where it's almost like guaranteed you're going to AEW, it loses a lot of its like luster.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Gentlemen, we have just over 5 minutes remaining. I want to go around the horn one more time, get your thoughts on another subject we have not talked about here, but we'll discuss on Wednesday's edition of Reaction. Will David and I, anyways, live here on Fight TV. Ronda Rousey, she has called wrestling fake in comparison to quote-unquote real fighting. Them is fighting words, and some WWE talents, including Nia Jax, have taken Ronda to task. At least they want to take her to task on those comments. So, gentlemen, in your last words, your final words for our live show tonight, how did that strike you when Ronda said what she done said? We'll start with you, Mr. Chernoff.
I think it's like the definition of a work shoot. I think she's going to come back at some point, but it wouldn't have ruffled as many feathers if she wasn't shooting on it. I mean, the reality of it is she did say that thing about how she's not questioning anyone else, but if you were doing shoot fighting, if you were doing, MMA 300 nights a year, you would be dead. As opposed to, it's not to minimize anything of what it does on the body for professional wrestling. So yeah, there was definitely, there was validity to what she was saying. As far as Nia Jax is going to go and knock her out, I mean, it's Ronda Rousey. So I hope that was a work as well.
Wait,
otherwise, Nia Jax
can't knock Ronda out.
I am saying, Nia, unless Ronda Rousey's like hands are tied behind her back. I mean, look, we've also seen, if she's feeding for a worked punch like Becky Lynch did, we've seen that Nia Jax is very capable of actually hurting somebody with a punch when they're not defending themselves. So, yeah, I think, but Nia Jax, like you're out of your mind if you think that you're legitimately going to even ruffle the feathers of Ronda Rousey by saying, "Oh, I'll knock you out if you like." Come on, what are you doing? So that is either a work or just dumber than a bag of hair. Like I don't understand where that's coming from. So, yeah, that's my opinion.
Meathead.
Yeah, and the same thing too is if it is a work and it's getting towards a match. I mean, that's the only way that Nia Jax would be able to get anything, because it would have to be in a protected match scenario. Because if it's let's go, Nia Jax doesn't have a chance on that. I don't care about the size. Ronda's gonna twist her like a pretzel.
Andrew.
What's that Rihanna song? Work, 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 work. That's what this is. Let's take it easy. Cute. And yeah, you like that? Let's just take it easy. I think Ronda got booed out of the building at the Staples Center for Survivor Series against a very good Charlotte Flair in a very good match. And I think this is all setting up
Charlotte Flair,
the best women's wrestler on the planet, in my opinion. But I think this is all culminating at WrestleMania 37, which is in LA, and I think she's going to come back as a heel, because how could she come back and wrestle either Becky or whomever as a face?
Jason Solomon.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we saw Ronda, she was a heel, so I certainly wouldn't change anything. She should come back as a heel without question. And I agree with everybody else. I mean, if Nia is not, working and she's being honest, because she was on one of the WWE shows talking about how when her best friend Alexa Bliss was working, she didn't name the person, but it seemed like she was referring to Ronda as the person who kept hurting Alexa, and she went into management. So it's possible there is some angst, like real angst there. But Ronda would, rip Nia's arm off and beat her over the head with it. So hopefully she's a little smarter than that. I think Ronda Rousey, who was a fan before she came to WWE, and, you watch some of those scenes they would show from like Total Divas and stuff when she was on the show. She's got far too much respect, I think, for the women who work there, Natty and everybody else, to be saying the things that she's saying without understanding what she's doing. She knows what she's doing. I actually missed Ronda on TV. I don't think the women's division on Raw has been the same since she left. I think we're still
Ronda.
Heel Ronda, and
the women don't main event without her.
Well, there would be no Evolution pay-per-view. The one women's pay-per-view they did, there would have been no women's pay-per-view without Ronda, and we were deprived, and we still are owed the one-on-one match with her and Becky. So hopefully she does come back. I wasn't bothered at all by what she said. I think she was saying that in a very calculated way, and I think they'll be better off when they get her back on TV.
Thank you, Jason. And we've got a brand new episode of the Silent Monster Sounds Off podcast and some other shows you do during the week as well. Tell us about those.
Yeah, it was. I went almost 3 hours yesterday. It's one of these things where, with everything being as it is, the week starts and I'm like, man, I hope I have enough content to talk about this week. And then I get to Saturday, the day before, and I'm like, how am I going to fit everything in? So that's kind of the way it's been the last few weeks. But I've been talking a lot about all the stuff we talked about, and also covering the Vice Dark Side of the Ring shows, which I've been enjoying every week. And this is going to be an interesting one tomorrow to cover because they're talking about the Jimmy Snuka story. So I'm sure I'll have a lot to say about that this weekend.
It's fascinating, and that's the Soundmonster Sounds Off podcast. You can get it wherever podcasts are, and also on YouTube, I believe, too. We never talked about the New Jack episode, and I really want to.
We don't have to. That was just bad business.
I would pass on that one. Just stay safe, boys.
Josh Chernoff, as we enter overtime, I think you're going to help us extend our overtime. Tell us more about the Meanie podcast.
I bet his wife is happy with everything.
Mind of the Meanie, at Mind of the Meanie across all social media. We are having a blast over there, much like I'm having a blast with you guys. So yeah, everybody, please check it out. Go follow us on social media. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, we also have a YouTube channel. And just today announced that we're on iHeartRadio as well, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so we're having a great time of that. And then I believe at the end of this week, there may or may not be a new episode of So Says Chernoff, probably with this exact same background in my house by myself. Yeah, but of course a different tie. And I did see, and somebody, Charles Stevens III on YouTube says, dumber than a bag of hair, put this on a shirt. So go to SoSaysChernoff.com very soon. I feel like you might be able to pick one of those up because apparently I said that.
Josh, thank you. That's at So Says Chernoff on Twitter. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, including our superstar panel, Jason at Solomonster on Twitter, Drew at Ticket Drew on Twitter as well, and the man they call Meathead, living in the past at WCW Meathead. And tomorrow morning, David, Andrew and Meathead bring the first episode of PWR Today.
So the
on the
world
podcast
gets
channels.
to work up with Drew and Meathead?
What a way to wake up. Everybody should want that. Trust me.
do it.
How can you go wrong?
Right, you got to have a little meat in your cup.
Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us here on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime. David, we are back again on Wednesday night live with reaction and Friday night Inside Story of Wrestling. I want to thank you all for tuning in to watch us here on Fight TV, supporting our partners at collarandelbowbrand.com, and also watching us on our socials. Thank you so much for all the comments and commenting along with us here tonight. And thank you for watching all the programming we did last weekend during WrestleMania weekend. And really appreciate all of you tuning in. You ready for Raw?
Absolutely.
The TV show.
Yeah, I'm always ready for Raw.
Well, folks, Raw is on the air. They are live. We are 3 minutes into overtime, so it's time to shut the hell up for that one and all the associates. This is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for joining us here live on Prime Time. We'll see you again Wednesday night for reaction and tomorrow morning for PWR Today.